Kelly Williams, Desires expert and money mindset coach. And today I want to talk to you a little bit about what to do when you have a relationship that doesn't feel as connected, as juicy, as powerful as it once was because your business and your work has taken over. So I'll be the first to admit I'm definitely a driven person. Being married to me is not always the easiest thing in the world. And recently my husband actually told me that he misses me. Now, we both work from home, but we have a brand new daughter. We both run our own businesses, and so things are a little bit crazy. And although we're in the same place, it oftentimes feels like we're not as connected as we want to be. And I hear this from driven women all the time. There are clients who come to me and say, it's basically like my husband and I are high-fiving in the hallway as we pass each other in the house, right? And we don't have time for intimacy. We don't have time to eat dinner together. We don't have juicy conversations when before I looked forward to all of our conversations and they were so intellectually stimulating. And now we're so exhausted that I don't even know how to connect on a basic level. The other thing that comes up for people, especially driven women, is that they don't want to have these honest conversations because they don't want to hurt their spouse's feelings. They don't want their partner to potentially leave them, which is, I know, an extreme example, but it's a real fear for many women. And they don't know how to express what it is that they need because they haven't yet acknowledged their own truths and the desires that they have that need to come to the surface. So all of this makes it very challenging to grow in relationship with your spouse if all of that is going on. So today I want to share 3 different ways that you can feel more connected to your partner and go deeper with intimacy, with conversation, with just spending time together. And they're just simple things and fun exercises that you can do starting with yourself, and then you can have an open and honest conversation with your partner or your spouse. Let's start with number 1. Get to know your partner's love language. Now, this sounds really simple, but it's super interesting. Whenever I do desire intensives with my clients, what we find out is they don't know their own love language, let alone their partner's. And so you might be showing your partner love in a way that they're not actually able to receive it. So for example, I love receiving gifts. My husband could care less about gifts. And so for me, I had to understand that his love language is different than mine. He loves me spending time with him. He loves the act of touch. And so maybe for you, you're similar to your partner, or maybe you're the complete opposite. But regardless, it's really important that you know your love language as well as your partner's so that you can tell them how you receive love, and you can also make sure you are giving love in the best way that they receive it as well. All right, so that's number 1. Number 2, practice the team exercise. Now, this is something I recently learned, although my husband and I have been doing something similar for many years. But basically, you go through this exercise, which includes 4 steps. So it's TEAM, so team. And each of those letters represent an act or a conversation or an exercise that you're going to do together. All right. Before you go any further, make sure you check out my Dream Life Guide using the link below. This is 20 pages of my unique methodology supporting you in uncovering exactly what you want, busting through your limiting beliefs and blocks, and putting the action steps in place to get the life that you are craving. Plus, I've also included a private podcast feed, so check it out. So T stands for touch. That's the first one. So you're going to hold hands or you're going to touch each other's arms while you're doing this exercise. So building that connection and that closeness, okay? E stands for educate. So share something that you've learned throughout the day that you thought was valuable. It could be about your partner. It could be something at work. It could be something you learned just being a human in the world. It doesn't matter. Just share something that feels interesting to you that you feel your partner may also resonate with or appreciate. Okay, now A, so we're at TEA. A is appreciation. So appreciation is something you loved about your partner from that day. It could be that they helped clean up the kitchen. It could be you saw them do something cute with your kids. You heard them on a meeting and they sounded very confident and like they did a good job. So something you appreciate about them. Maybe they told you you looked beautiful today and that really meant a lot to you, or they made the bed, or they picked up their clothes. It could be something big, it could be something little. Just reflect back that you loved something about them. And finally, the M stands for a metric. Now, I have a caveat to this one. Sometimes I don't actually like sharing my metric at the end of this exercise because a metric is basically something that you wish your partner would do differently. So let me give you an example. There was a period of time where I would cook dinner and then we would sit down at the table and then James would go and get all of his supplements ready to go once the food was already on the table. Now, I should also be clear, he he cooks a lot. And so this didn't happen that often, but there was one day recently where he kind of reverted and ended up doing the same thing. And so that evening when we were doing the team exercise, I shared that with him. And I said, you know what, it would be really amazing if you got your supplements ready before dinner was on the table. So then we weren't waiting for you and the food wasn't going cold. And that was just something he hadn't even realized that he did, but it was something I brought to his attention. And he's like, oh yeah, of course. Well, I can change that. I can do that differently. So maybe there's something that has come up for you with your partner throughout the day. And one of the other ways that reasons why this works so well and is so powerful is because you don't need to tell your partner in the exact moment that it happens that something is going on that's bothering you. And oftentimes your emotion is very heightened in that moment as well. So they might not be able to receive the information and you might not deliver it in the best way you possibly could. But when you share it within this container and you're able to have a safe space for both of you to be open and they're prepared to receive this information, it's game changing. And they're able to much better receive it and to potentially take it on board and make the change that you were requesting. Now, the only reason why I don't necessarily like putting it at the end is because sometimes it can create some negativity, especially if someone takes it really personally or is quite sensitive. So sometimes James and I will actually end on the appreciation and do the metric one step before. So then it would be TEMA, so TEMA. So you could do that as well. And then I should also mention here that this exercise might be something that you don't actually want to do. There are days where I'm more excited about it than others. For instance, there was one day in particular where I really did not want to do this exercise. I was in a bad mood. Something was coming up for me. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but I was just moody and irritable. And I had to literally force myself to go into the kitchen and do this exercise with James. Now, he could feel that something was coming up for me. He could feel that I wasn't quite myself. And so right away, when we did the touch, and he gave me a hug, I was able to soften and I was able to really release what I was experiencing. And I actually started to cry right away. And through the exercise, he helped me uncover what was actually going on with me and what I was worried about and what the fear was that was coming up for me that had been buried for most of the day. He helped me bring that to the surface and actually shed light on it. So again, you might not always want to do this exercise, but if you do it correctly and you make the effort, it will foster that connection that you're craving, and your partner can then support you in whatever way that looks like. You can move through some of the stuff that you might be holding on to from that day and be able to release it. That's the power of this incredible exercise. All right, number 3 is to be as honest as possible. So when my husband and I worked with a relationship coach, her name was Marla Mattinson, she talked about exquisite honesty. Now, this basically means that you share honestly from the heart what you are experiencing with your partner or what's coming up for you or what you want to change. It's about always being honest. Now, it seems like a simple concept, but for many driven women, this is really hard. They're barely honest with themselves, let alone their partner. And when they think about being honest, all those fears came up like we talked about in the previous few minutes. And so you really have to practice this, and you have to recognize that honesty is actually the gateway to the relationship you're craving and to the closeness that you are craving. Now, as I mentioned before in the team exercise, there's oftentimes a good moment to share those honest feelings. It's not normally just blurting it out or saying it out of the blue. You can actually ask your partner, are you available to hear this right now? Or are you available for an honest conversation? And they can kind of get themselves ready and then prepare mentally and emotionally for what you're going to say. But what I've found is that the more we hold on to things, the more we don't release what it is that we're actually feeling or what it is that we actually want, the harder it becomes to connect with your partner, because it becomes this barrier in between the two of you. And I know that you don't want that. So you can practice kind of like releasing that valve a little bit, just share one thing honestly today. Maybe it's even just one thing that you loved about your partner that you don't normally share with them. Maybe it's one thing that you'd like to do with your partner. Maybe it's simply texting your partner and saying, hey, I want to spend time with you alone tonight. Are you available for that? Or I want to go on this date night. Or hey, I really miss you. My husband sent me that text recently. And so I want you to really think about what needs to be said, what you feel your truth actually is in your relationship and how you can start to bring that to the surface. So there are 3 tips for driven women on how to improve their romantic relationship, but truly you could apply this to any relationship in your life. I hope this is helpful, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time.